Much like all shooters, everyone looking to improve our ability to shoot by improving our understanding of what it means to shoot. This video dealing with some intercepts as we compare the motion of the clean and jerk to the jump shot. Clean and jerk is an Olympic lift where you bring a weight from below you and finish with the weight over your head, similar to a dip shot where you bring the ball down and then you finish with the ball over your head. These motions have a lot in common from a physics perspective as well. If we think about Newton's third law, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. In other words, if we were putting 300 pounds of force into the ground puts 300 pounds of force into us, and put that 300 pounds of force into an object to move that object over our head. So that force can be used to move a 300-pound weight, say, or it can be used to move a 2-pound basketball 50 feet in the air. All those measurements are made up, but that makes sense, right? If we push it into us and push into the object to move that ball over our head. So in those ways, the vertical component of the jump shot, we can see it as a clean and jerk. And we can actually break down the mechanics and see the similarity of that as well with Steph Curry's shot. Steph Curry is a two-motion shot, if we think about it. The first motion is bring the ball from dip to shoulder, which is the same as, or similar to clean, where you bring a weight from in front of you to your shoulders. Second phase of Steph Curry's shot is bring the ball from his shoulder to over his head. In other words, the jerk, bring the weight from your shoulder to over your head. So we can see that this is the way that Steph Curry applies a lot of force into the ball from below to generate a lot of his upward arc. Let's take a closer look at the comparison of the technique between these two phases, the clean and the jerk. First thing to look at is the lower body, triple extension, hips, knees, and elbows, ground for power. Second, moving to the upper body, we see the first phase, the clean and jerk, moves the ball up to the shoulder. And the finishing pose is the shoulder is extended, the elbow is extended, and the wrist is flexed. So that's moving from the overhead shoulder position where the weight is sitting on top of the shoulder. So basically, fairly similar mechanics in this similar motion of applying force into the ground to apply force into us to get us moving up, to apply force into a weight to move something over our head. However, the main difference being that Steph Curry is not just covering a vertical, it needs to cover a horizontal. So briefly look at the mechanics of that. So we see that at Steph Curry's jerk phase, in other words, when the ball is over his head and is over his shoulder and moves from over his head, there's also a tricep where he moves the ball horizontally out, and that is one of the main sources of his vertical power or horizontal power. We also can't see in this video, but he jumps forward. Jumping forward is a way to make the ball move towards the basket. One thing I want to address as well is sway shooting or back tilt. We have another video specifically on sway shooting, looking at Chandler Parsons and how that affects release angle. But in short, a back tilt affects release angle by pushing the release angle up. In other words, it can change range to arc. And front tilt, leaning forward, changes arc to range. Steph Curry's shot is extremely arcy. We see that it's similar to clean and jerk, which is creating vertical. So Steph doesn't necessarily need on this shot to turn his arc or vertical. He doesn't necessarily need to change his horizontal into vertical. Really the opposite. So we can see on his release that he's more or less straight up and down. He's not a huge sway shooter. It's not super necessary to this shot, although on some of his shots he uses it. Basic point being, clean and jerk and the jump shot are very similar in moving an object over your head. So understanding this can improve our jump shot, and specifically understanding and practicing the clean and jerk can do a lot to add upward power and arc in a jump shot, which can do a lot to add range and aim and help accuracy. So, hope this all makes sense. If you have any questions, comment below or anything else that you think clarifies, makes this simpler to understand. So, much love and hope this helps the shooters out there. Peace.